Okay guys, I'm going to make a little video for you here. Just for the first time, certainly for anything I've ever tried, changing the timing belts on my Ducati Monster 1100 Evo. So I've got the belt covers off and I've got access to the belts now, which is pretty good. So how did I get there? That was probably a little bit more challenging in some respects. So I had a belly pan on this bike which I had to remove. That's straightforward enough. The next thing you have to do, you don't have to drop the exhaust off the front, so you don't have to drop the manifold at the front. That's not necessary, some videos show that. Quite simply, all I did was loosen the bolt from the top exhaust through the frame. I just backed it off and loosened it so I can wiggle it out. Sprayed some WD-40 on it. I removed the bolt that holds the bottom of the exhaust to the bike. That's also where the belly pan has a bracket on my bike, and I loosened off where the exhaust cans join the hanger, so I backed that bolt off so I can swivel it, and I removed the springs, so the spring on each of the pipes. And to remove it, all I did was get that rubber band through the spring at the top of the curve of the spring and just apply some pressure to pull it up, and the spring comes off quite easy. So once I'd done that, I could literally do two things: wiggle out the top pipe that goes through the frame and joins this pipe here, and then I could just gently wiggle and ease both these pipes down from where they join the exhaust pipes at this section where the springs are. So a little bit of wiggling, just take your time, don't have to damage anything, pretty straightforward, that piece. And then the covers themselves, you simply just have to take out a number of screws. I think it's about a number 5 or 6 hex key. Just back the bolts off with your hand. You see some people doing it with power tools. You can do it that way, but you're at greater risk of stripping threads. By hand a little less so. And there you have it. After just pulling out the covers, so the bottom one's easy to remove and it holds the top belt cover in place. The top one slightly more difficult because it's in there quite tight, so just take your time. It will get caught around this section. It just requires a little bit of wiggling and a little bit of force, but nothing too drastic. So the next step is to wait for the belts to arrive. I've ordered genuine Ducati belts. I shall mark up the positions of the pulleys so they hold their position. I may even lock them. I understand if I remove a cover from the other side of the bolt of the engine, remove the bolts, and you can use, I believe, try this at your own risk, but I believe you can put a drill bit in there just to lock it, and what I've seen is essentially it's just quite a long thin locking device that goes in, so I may give that a go to lock it, or I might just mark these up so I know the positions. And quite interestingly, these belts have only done about 1,000 miles. I think that one is probably, and I'll do it on Spectroid, probably about right. It's a little loose perhaps, which is interesting. The top belt, and this was done by the Ducati dealer in the UK when I bought the bike, top one's really quite loose. There's a lot of wiggle room in there, and I'm not putting any pressure on there. That's moving quite easily with hardly any pressure, so it's a lot looser than the bottom belt, so probably a good job that I'm doing this. I mean, there, that flaps against the inside of the case with hardly any movement. Now when it's spinning, it's probably under torsion, less of an issue, less of a concern, but that one is definitely significantly looser than the bottom, and that was done by the Ducati techs at a Ducati dealer when I bought the bike. It's been off the road a few years. I've changed all the fluids regularly, ran it through, kept it running. It's got new brake fluid, it's got new engine fluids in it, it's got a brand new battery. Was another job that I'm doing because the battery was a bit old. So it's a bike in great condition. Just getting it back on the road, and most likely thing is I'll either ride it or I will allow someone else to enjoy it, because it deserves to be ridden a lot more often than I use it for. Anyway, I'll do a part 2 to this when I take these belts out. When I mark them up, take these belts out by backing off the no word escapes me now, but the spring rollers there that create the tension on the chain, on the belt, sorry. You can see this one through here, it looks really loose. I mean, when I move that, when I touch that at the bottom, it's really flapping around at the top. It's definitely not looking like it was correctly tensioned. The tensioner springs and rollers, that's what I was referring to down here. So we'll see how we get on.